Coming up on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast, Manny Lozano is here to help.
That when you have when you have a sense of community, a group of people who are by your side or that you can lean on and just chat and talk with, it does provide a better sense of life, and you can find your life, whether it's the one you're living at now. And sometimes we've heard from people that they found their new life, right?
And Manny isn't the only one. We'll be hearing from FSR Senior Director of Development, Angela O'Malley, who will tell you how to join a discussion with former New York Yankees great Bernie Williams, who, as it turns out, is also a Grammy nominee in the music world.
Bernie Williams is a four-time New York Yankees World Series champion. And since the devastating loss of his father, he's been really inspired to use his experience and platform to advocate for others through Bo Ingerheim's Tune Into Lung Health campaign.
It's all coming up on the award-winning FSR Sarc Fighter podcast.
This is the Sarc Fighter podcast. Living with sarcoidosis and other rare diseases. Here's your host, John Carlin.
Hello and welcome to episode 99 of the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. I'm your host, John Carlin. This episode is brought to you by A-Tire Pharmaceuticals. To learn more about their new pulmonary sarcoidosis trial called EFZO-FIT, visit stopsarcoidosis.org/A-Tire trial, and there is a link in the show notes. I hope you'll check that out and become a part of that clinical trial and get all of us a little closer to having the first drug ever developed specifically for sarcoidosis. I'm also excited to tell you a bit about the FSR Annual Virtual Global Summit, actually a lot about it today. Impacted by sarcoidosis and looking for answers, FSR invites patients, their friends and family, and clinicians to attend the 2023 Global Virtual Summit called Find Your Community, Find Your Life. Join FSR's biggest event of the year. This is November 3rd through the 5th, so it's coming up very soon of 2023, and you'll be hearing from some leading experts. You'll connect with others and get your sarcoidosis questions answered. Learn more and register now by visiting the FSR website, and there is a link in the show notes. And if you just go to WFSR, if you go to www.stopsarcoidosis.org, you can also find a link there as well as in the show notes. And I can tell you that I'll be moderating two events this year, and the first is kind of a big deal. I'm not lying about that. On Friday evening, on the eve of the summit, I'll be moderating a discussion about how music therapy can be very helpful for people with sarcoidosis, and FSR will be presenting a man whose name that you probably will recognize, as he was a big-time baseball player for the New York Yankees. He played center field for the Yankees. He hit 287 home runs in his career. He was on 4 World Series championship teams for the Bronx Bombers, and he won 4 Gold Gloves. And I'm talking about Bernie Williams. In fact, the Yankees even retired Bernie's number 51, because he was one of the greats. And when you talk about the New York Yankees and you're one of the greats, that's saying something, right? Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig. I won't even begin to go down Mickey Mantle. I won't even begin to mention all of them. But in a group of great baseball players, Bernie Williams is also considered one of the greats. Well, since his retirement, Williams, who is, it turns out, is a trained guitarist, and he's focused on music since his retirement. He's released albums and received a Grammy nomination, so he's not just a guy in the back room picking around on a guitar, right? He is really, really, really good. And Bernie's father, unfortunately, died of ILD, and so Bernie became interested in helping people with lung disease, and so he will be joining us to talk about music and helping out. I did speak a couple of days prior to this recording with Angela O'Malley of FSR about the event, and here's what she had to say about that evening with Bernie Williams. I want to bring in Angela O'Malley, who is the Senior Director of Development for FSR, and she is going to talk about this pre-summit event that is going on, which has a major celebrity involved. Angela, first of all, thank you for joining me here today. And secondly, tell everybody how exciting this Friday evening event is to lead up to the summit.
John, thank you so much. We are so excited. We've never kicked off the summit before, and we thought, what better way to help kick off this really exciting weekend for the community than with an evening to find hope and inspiration through music featuring Bernie Williams. This event is Friday, November 3rd, and will take place from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Central Time. And is exclusive for summit attendees.
And Bernie Williams is kind of a big deal. He's known a little bit in the music world, but he's better known for baseball.
He is a New York Yankees legend, actually, and also a Latin Grammy nominee. Bernie Williams' life was actually changed forever when he lost his father, or his hero, to interstitial lung disease. Bernie Williams is a four-time New York Yankees World Series champion. And since the devastating loss of his father, he's been really inspired to use his experience and platform to advocate for others through Boehringer Ingelheim's Tune Into Lung Health campaign.
Wow. So he is motivated. He wants to help. He's using his name through sports, but he's also, very highly thought of, obviously with a Grammy nomination in the musical world. And so what is going to be happening is we're going to take a hard look at music as a therapy for people who are dealing with the stress of sarcoidosis.
Yes. We surveyed our community, John, and found that the overwhelming response from our community was that music helps improve their mood and helps people cope with the negative feelings and anxiety that they experience as a result of living with or supporting someone impacted by sarcoidosis.
So if somebody's saying, wow, I'm kind of wondering how I could participate with this, or I didn't know if I wanted to sign up for the summit, but now that I know Bernie Williams is going to be involved and we're going to have this big kickoff. So how do people sign up? What happens next for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So people can visit our website, www.stopsarcoidosis.org, click on the main summit homepage and learn more about registering for the summit there, but just a couple clicks and you can learn more and register for the summit. Once someone's registered for the summit, we'll be able to send you a specific invite to join this virtual celebration and pre-summit event the night before.
Awesome, Angela. Well, I'm looking forward to being the host of all that. It's going to be fun. I get to virtually meet Bernie Williams too, which I'm very excited about.
Yes, we're so excited to have you help guide the conversation, John. We've got an esteemed panel as well, featuring a clinician, a music therapist, a patient, and we'll also have Mary McGowan, FSR CEO, join as well. So it's going to be a really robust conversation, and we can't wait.
Yeah, an all-star cast. So
all-star cast, exactly.
All right, Angela, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much, John.
So thanks to Angela, and I hope to see all of you at the Bernie Williams event. And then just quickly, I wanted to let you know that I'll be moderating a panel discussion on Sunday during the summit. And I'm just so excited to be able to play a part with the Bernie Williams part and with this patient panel discussion on Sunday. During that discussion, we'll be hearing from a diverse group of individuals like you who are navigating the complex sarcoidosis journey, if you want to call it that. And then we'll be listening to them talk about their stories, their experiences and insights, and hopefully will help you gather some tools to help you navigate your own experience with sarcoidosis, kind of like what we do here on the podcast, except it'll be in a forum format, and I'll be leading that discussion. And we'll just be talking about how sarcoidosis has affected the lives of different people who come from different walks of life. And that'll be on Sunday, November 5th from 11 to 12 Eastern Time. So I look forward to seeing you there as well. So please go and sign up for the summit just as soon as you finish listening to the podcast, or put it on pause, go sign up and come back. But listen to the podcast. So just a couple of life updates here in Roanoke, Virginia, the home of the Sarc Fighter podcast. It's mid-October here in the mountains. The leaves are changing. It's going to be gorgeous here in another month or so. And depending upon which tree you're looking at, it already is. But when all the trees on the side of the mountain start to turn, it's just simply amazing. And I've always thought of myself as an entrepreneur. Not that I've been great at it, but my mind is always scheming for something interesting to do that would make me all kinds of money. You know, those ideas that we all have in the back of our heads. And I've always been thinking about something that I could do with my life and start a business, take an idea, take it from a seed all the way through to fruition, provide me with happiness. And a few years ago, I will tell you, I've done this a couple of times. I took a plunge, and you might be laughing at me now. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna put on my fish geek hat. I bought the local aquarium store. And I don't know if I've talked about that on the podcast before, but I've had a passion for whatever lives under the water since I was a child. And that grew into me being an aquarium hobbyist, and I got more and more and more advanced and complicated with the aquariums that I kept. So now I keep very sophisticated saltwater aquariums with special lighting and special filtration, and I actually have live corals living in my fish tank. And so I got really into it. My middle son, Ben, was really into it in his teenage years. It was something we did together. And so we bought the local aquarium store. And then since then, we sold the store, but one of the things we learned was that there was a lucrative business in maintaining people's aquariums. And so we now have an aquarium maintenance business that does quite well. And so in addition to my primary job as a journalist, Ben and I, my wife Mary, we have this family business, and that's actually worked out. So I scratched my entrepreneurial itch there, and I'll tell you why I'm talking about this in a minute. And then I will tell you that for about 4.5 years, I had my own PR agency. I practiced public relations, and that worked out as well. Unfortunately, or fortunately, until the gravitational pull of TV news sucked me back in, and now my primary thing that I do is anchor the news here for the local NBC station, WSLS 10. But I am talking about the whole entrepreneurial thing because I've been impressed with a couple of local people who have done it very well. And every year I work with Junior Achievement of Southwest Virginia to create stories about business people who have done well. And then these stories are presented on the air, they're presented online and in person at a gala that I have hosted now for more than 30 years. It's typically attended by 300 people plus, and it's labeled the biggest night in business in the Roanoke Valley, and I think arguably it is when you look at the audience. And so we always give out a number of awards at the annual gala. It's a fundraiser for Junior Achievement, but it does very well. And so for the past couple of weeks, I've been putting together stories about local entrepreneurs, and I've spent a lot of time digging into their lives. And I'm just going to very briefly share a couple of them with you. Kat Pascal is a woman who started a unique restaurant called Farm Burguesa, and basically that is the Hispanic word for burger. And then you combine that with the farm-to-table movement, and they came up with a made-up word, Farm Burguesa. And they have 2 locations, and both of them do phenomenally well here in the Roanoke Valley. And it's a place that sells gourmet burgers, but these burgers have local ingredients, including the beef, which comes from a local farm. It's grass-fed beef that is grain finished. So I guess they fatten the beef up after they live out in the pasture for most of their lives. But then they take, in the restaurant, they take unique Colombian-inspired spices and flavorings, and these burgers are amazing. If you're going to vote for best burger in the Roanoke Valley, and there's a lot of options, you may have never heard of Roanoke, but it's a beautiful little city here in the western. It's the biggest city in the western half of Virginia, and Farm Burguesa has really taken off. And then in addition to that, Kat has started something called the Latinas Network, and she now helps hundreds of local women of Hispanic heritage find success in their lives. And so it's been very inspiring to dig into Kat's life, and I'll be able to share a link to that story very soon. And I will also share that this is kind of cool. For the first time ever, normally we have staff from the TV station come and shoot these stories, but there is a very high-end program here at the local school system in Roanoke City Schools. And this story has been shot by high school students under the supervision of their teacher, who used to work at the TV station. He was one of our top production people. And so it's going to be interesting for me to see the finished product, but I will be surprised if you can tell the difference between what these students are doing and what my professional team at the TV station are doing. I am expecting that, based upon everything I have seen so far, that this is going to be an amazing story. So local high school students, and then the story of Kat Pascal with her restaurant chain, so far of 2, Farm Burguesa. And then my second entrepreneur that I've been talking to is a man named Greg Terrell. And the first thing I have to tell you is that in downtown Roanoke, we have this iconic old fire station. And this fire station has been there since the late 1800s or early 1900s. I can't tell you what it is, but it goes all the way back to when there was a fire in town. They rolled out of there with a fire truck that was pulled by horses. Okay, that tells you all you need to know. Well, the fire station is this beautiful building, and it's got that kind of iconic brick fire station look. It even had the poles where firefighters would sleep upstairs, and they would slide down the poles so they could initially go out with the horses and then later go out with the fire trucks. And everybody wanted to save it, but nobody knew what to do with this historic fire station. And there had been several groups, developers who came through, looked at it, said no, looked at it, said no, looked at it, said no. In the meantime, the fire station is just sitting there in a prominent location in the middle of downtown Roanoke. So in comes Greg Terrell, and Greg's family has a history of making private label furniture at a plant right here in Roanoke. Of course, you know that going back to the George W. Bush administration, we opened up our trade borders, became a world economy, and one of the things that our area lost here in Western Virginia was 2 things. We were big for textile manufacturing and furniture manufacturing. Well, all those jobs went to China or other places where labor was cheaper. But Greg's company kept on making furniture here in Roanoke, and you would never recognize the furniture, but what they do is you may go to a resort and be sitting on furniture that was made here in Roanoke. Greg's company makes it, they sell it to another company that puts their label on it, and then it winds up wherever it winds up. But it's high-end stuff. It's not cheaply made, let's put it that way. And he refers to his team as craftspeople, and they have the quality product to back that up. Okay, so he was doing that for a long time in the background. Well, he decided he wanted to be more public-facing with his entrepreneurial spirit. So he has gone into Fire Station 1 and now opened up a furniture showroom in there. But this gets even better. There's a furniture showroom, and the name of the furniture is Texture. I'll put a link in the show notes. I think it's TEXTR. I don't want to get it wrong, or TXTUR. But it's amazing stuff, and it's the kind of thing that you would put in your home if you were going to have it for a long time. It's not trendy, but it does have its own unique look, and I'm not trying to sell you his furniture. I'm trying to describe it to you. But it's very interesting. And I think if you looked at it, that you would understand what I'm talking about. But here's what he's done on the entrepreneurial side. Lots of people have opened furniture showrooms. Well, they refurbished the fire station. Then he decides, you know what? We need to put a restaurant in here. So now they have a restaurant called Stock with a beautiful bar and a full-time actual chef, not a cook, but a chef with this Nordic-inspired menu. And then they took the area upstairs in Fire Station 1 where the firefighters used to sleep and live while they were waiting to be on call to respond to a fire at a moment's notice, and they've turned it into a boutique 7-room hotel. And so one of the rooms that he showed me as we were working on the story and it's a gorgeous room, but they've left just enough of it there so you realize that you're staying in an old fire station. One of the rooms you can stay in is where they kept the hay for the horses. It was literally the hay loft, and there was this big hook on the ceiling where they would lift the hay up to the, I think it's the 3rd story, and they would keep the hay in there to feed the horses. Now, there's just enough feel of that in the room. It's the original equipment, but you realize that you're in that room where they kept the hay for the horses. And there's no smell. Everything is gone. It is absolutely beautiful, and this is a very expensive room, probably over $300 a night. And so it is a boutique hotel. But here's what he's made work that I love on the entrepreneurial side, is that people come in to go to the restaurant, but then they can walk seamlessly into the furniture showroom and they sit on the couches, which are all set up to have conversations. So people will be sitting there sipping their wine, eating their appetizers or whatever, maybe while they're waiting for their reservation. Or maybe they'll just come in and they'll get a drink in the bar, and it's a very, very extensive and beautiful bar, and then just go out and sit with their friends and have a drink. But they're sitting on the furniture, right? And it happens all the time, he tells me, that people say, I kind of like this furniture. I kind of like the look of this. And they'll go over and they will order furniture while they're sitting there having a drink. Or if they come out of the restaurant, they'll order the furniture. Or they'll stay in the hotel and they'll say, you know what? I loved my bed last night. They'll come down and they'll make a furniture order. So here is a guy who's figured out a way to refurbish a historic building in the downtown of the city, make it a destination attraction. It's a hotel, it's a restaurant, and they're making custom furniture and selling it. And that's all worked out very well. And so I've been diving into Greg's life and to Kat's life, and that's the big project I've been working on since the last time I talked to you here on the podcast. And I love and recognize that entrepreneurial spirit, and I really, really just kind of fanboy for people who do it well, because I've had that spirit, and yet I've done it myself, but most of my life I've been working for somebody else. That's how I've made my living and supported my family. And then I had done well with the public relations business, but for most of my life I've been working for somebody else. And I just really appreciate people who go out there and say, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I'm talking about that today because neither Greg nor Kat have sarcoidosis. But I admire the quality in people that keeps them innovating, driving forward, and making it all work. And that's not unlike what we're all doing as we try to overcome sarcoidosis, right? I mean, we have a setback. We have a challenge in front of us, but we're determined to press on with our lives to not just survive, but to the extent that we can to thrive. And maybe you're trying to thrive with a new normal. Maybe you're trying to redefine what success looks like, or maybe you're finding a way to get back to the best version of what always was. You know, I'm arguably close to that, having been I'll use the word remission. Maybe I should say that my sarcoidosis is controlled, and I do have some permanent damage. so I can no longer run and do the type of things that I once did. I don't play basketball anymore. I'm not nimble. I'm not quick, and I have to be careful. But I am back to in terms of my family and in terms of my professional career and fitness wise, I've replaced running with riding my bike, as you've heard me talk about ad nauseum. I'm sorry, but I've made it all work. But I've done that kind of with that same spirit that comes from a part of my being that also appreciates entrepreneurs. And I think it's that spirit that makes a difference for all of us, and we need to recognize that. So I like sharing that with you. I hope you find inspiration. And as soon as I can release these stories, which have to be released to the public and at the gala first, I can give you a link, and maybe you can just watch these little 3-minute segments and learn more about Greg and his furniture business and restaurant and hotel and cat with Farm Burguesa, because I really, really admire them for what they're doing. All right, listen, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I want you to help me reach more people. So please help me grow the show. Share it on your social media, subscribe, and give the show a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, now getting back to that entrepreneurial spirit, my guest today for my main interview is Manny Lozano, Senior Director of Global Programs for FSR. He was in the Navy for 23 years as a hospital corpsman, and now he is in the medical nonprofit world helping guide the patient programs at FSR. He's only a few months into the job, and I wanted to give you a chance to meet him, hear what he's all about, and to learn about more ways that FSR can help you through Manny as you deal with sarcoidosis, maybe apply a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit. And so Manny Lozano is coming up next here on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the Sarc Fighter podcast. You may be wondering, what can I do to help? How can I be a part of the sarcoidosis solution? It's simple. Make a donation to KISS, Kick In to Stop Sarcoidosis. 100% of the money goes to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. Look for a link in the show notes of the Sarc Fighter podcast. Welcome back to the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. Joining me now is Manny Lozano. His title is Senior Director of Global Patient Programs for the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. Manny, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you very much, John. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So you're relatively new in this role. You've been there, about 5 months now?
5 months coming up. In a few days, I'll be there 5 months. Time flies.
So you you have been drinking the sarcoidosis messaging like it's coming out of a fire hose and trying to absorb everything that our crazy world is. How are you doing so far?
I always say, John, we always start off with anything by dipping your toes in the water, and at some point you just got to jump in, right? It's going to be cold, it's going to be warm, it's going to be deep, or it may be shallow. You just got to jump in, figure it out, stay afloat, and then in no time, with enough treading water, you'll be swimming laps like you don't even remember when you were treading water. So it's definitely drinking from the hot fire hose, but it's exciting every day. I learn something every day, and that's all you can ask for is opportunity, right? So
yeah, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate your ability to just sort of jump in and get going with this. But you do have a background in health because you were in the Navy for 23 years. So how do you go from the Navy to helping a nonprofit foundation and all of us poor folks who are dealing with the effects of sarcoidosis?
I appreciate you saying poor folks, but I'm gonna say the great folks, right? I'll be honest. I did my time in the Navy, 23 years, and I loved every minute of it. And along the way, I just decided to, prioritize my family a little bit more. So that's what made me transition there earlier this year. And I started off my civilian journey, as the military folk like to say, looking for work and kind of seeing what was out there. I also wanted to challenge myself. I do this to myself, so I'm gluttonous for pain. So I do this kind of to myself, and I wanted to do something that was maybe a little bit challenging and outside of my skill set, as being a medic and practicing medicine in the Navy. So I had some leadership stuff that, yeah, I really like to do leadership type of management of people and programs and things. So I kind of had that going for me. So as I started looking for work, I came across this posting for FSR, and as I started to just do more research, I just started to just kind of buy into a little bit more. A part of that research was I found that there was over 20,000 veterans that are diagnosed with sarcoidosis. And that really kind of drew me in, as veterans, are often forgotten. And similar to that, I saw that in the PACT Act that came out through the VA, sarcoidosis is actually listed on there as a condition that they're looking to maybe get some more, funding and energy and resources poured into. So I saw that as an opportunity. I saw it as an opportunity for me to maybe lend a perspective and a different point of view, being a veteran myself, and having done some tours overseas, to maybe just provide a different perspective than maybe the organization was or wasn't looking at, and just kind of try to help that community. Aside from that, the entire community with sarcoidosis. But that's ultimately what kind of drew me in. And then through the process, interviewing, getting to meet the team and the people, I couldn't stop. I had to get this opportunity. I had to, I prepared as much as possible because I did not want this one to slip through my fingers, as I found it an opportunity for them and an opportunity for me to grow and develop as well. So that's why, and luckily, everything worked out, and that's kind of why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the Senior Director of Global Patient Programs? Well, I mean, what is it that they have you doing in your day-to-day life as you try to help the foundation?
In this position itself is a little bit new. In the past, it was just a patient programs director, but with the new FSR GSCA, the FSR Global Sarcoidosis Clinic Alliance, the organization strategically and from a standpoint of making sure that they reach everyone in all communities. I think the GSCA was stood up to ultimately try to be global at this point, right? It says it in the title, and it's truly the initiatives and the projects that we're working on are focusing in that arena. So that's kind of what I do. I kind of help them develop strategies and key initiatives and sustain those strategies and initiatives to ultimately try to branch out, not just serving the people within the United States, but also trying to have more of a reach in that global area and environment. So it's a lot of work. It is a lot of things that go behind the scenes to try to make that happen. And it's chipping away at a big rock, right? You got to start somewhere. So I do a lot of that. Also, I lead a colleague of mine as her immediate supervisor in the management of the day-to-day, functions within the organization, making sure our trackers are up to date, making sure that we are training new volunteers and that we're keeping up with the times, as well as recruiting for the GSCA or recruiting for any of our other volunteer programs that we have within the organization, and managing events and projects such as the summit, in-person event like one that we got coming up in March. So a lot of work, around the clock type of work, but nonetheless, I'm blessed to have this opportunity, and but that's kind of what I do here. And I answer directly to Mary, our CEO, and any of her initiatives or organization guidance in support of our mission, which is ultimately to find a cure. I kind of just get out there, saddle up, and try to do the best that I can, put the best foot forward.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. So I appreciate, because you and I interact fairly regularly, because you are the staff person who helps the patient advisory committee, of which I'm a member. And I want to say thank you for keeping us on track, keeping us going, and asking our opinions about some of the different things the foundation is doing. So So thank you very much for that. I want to circle back a little bit because, first of all, I am remiss in not having already said thank you for your service.
Not a problem. It was an honor to serve. So thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Well, I tell you what, I have a ton of respect for those of you who have served in the military and gone. And you mentioned you did a couple of tours. Where did you go?
Aside from just country X, Y, and Z, I think we'll leave it at that. I did do a tour, a boots on ground tour with the Marines in Ramadi, Iraq. That was back in 2007, I believe. Wow, time flies, right?
Yeah.
So I got to do a combat tour with the Marines in Iraq, and I've visited. I've also had opportunities to not be in combat all the time. I've gotten to see Asia, Europe, you name it. I think I've hit it, and it's been a blessing. Nothing that I would ever saw myself doing when I was 18 years old, but so glad that I made that decision. And aside from getting to see all these countries and getting to do all these tours and deployments overseas, ultimately met some great people along the way, and has led me to kind of putting myself in a position to be with this organization. So I think that's I can look back and say that decision was not a bad one. So
yeah, I'm really envious of that. I tell you what, you guys, you've seen so much. You mentioned you did the combat tour. You're a Navy guy. I mean, were you on the ground or were you on a ship when all that was going on?
Yeah, so it's a little fun fact. I'm glad you asked that. So the Marine Corps, they are Department of the Navy. They will never tell you that, right? Or when you tell them, they'll say that they're the men's department, right? It's a little running joke inside the military. But they do not have medics of their own. So they basically take the medics that the Navy trains, and gives them a little bit of extra field medicine schooling and training, and we actually support Marines as well. So Navy medics aren't just on ships or submarines or any of the other units. We also support the Marine Corps. So when Marines need medics, we get assigned to Marine units as well.
So you were on the ground then?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, were you supporting firefights and so?
Oh, yeah. Definitely boots on ground. I was there.
Man, so you're the guy that if a soldier gets wounded, they bring them to you?
Yeah. So yeah, they call us Doc, right? It's a term of endearment, but it's a term of respect that you kind of have to earn with those guys by doing the things that they do and breathing the air that they breathe. But once you get that title, it's one that comes with a lot of responsibility. But yeah, we're the guys. We're it.
Wow. So now you are living in Missouri, right?
Yep, correct.
And so you're able to work remotely with FSR. I guess the pandemic. I think it's a blessing to be able to work remotely. I think I would really enjoy. I'm sitting in my home office right now. I've got my fish tank behind me. My dog Dougal is sitting on the chair, and I'm just very comfortable. I'm very happy. I'm not dressed up. It's nice to be able to just work from home, isn't it? In terms of your family life and your work-life balance.
It's great. I can't deny that. I used to tell people I used to be gone like 80%, at least at my last scene. I was gone 80% of the year. So there was far and few times that I got to see my family. So I get to see them every day. I could take my kids to school from time to time, like these things, these moments that, people may take for granted, that I just see as like blessings and just, things that I missed out on for a lot of their lives. So I love working from home. I appreciate this opportunity. That's why I sometimes work so hard. I don't want this one to go away. So
there you go.
Very much so.
So had you even heard of sarcoidosis before you started looking around for a job in the civilian sector?
No, I hadn't. And like I said, once this opportunity, I did a little more research and got to learn some more. That was one of the attractions, right? Because if I hadn't heard of it, and I was a medic, right? I was a clinician as well, right? If I hadn't heard of it, who else hasn't heard of it? And how do we, try to spread that message and get the word out, right? I think FSR is leading the charge in that front. Still a lot of work to do, and I'm appreciative of the opportunity to help them, in that charge and in that fight to get the word out. I think we're getting there. The time is now for sarcoidosis it's said all the time, but we are making some big strides here in this space, and very exciting times right now.
Yeah. All right. So now you're working on the summit, which is coming up. So let's, first of all, if people listening are not aware of the FSR Summit, why don't we just give a broad overview of what that is, and then we'll talk about some of the different things you're working on. How's that sound?
Sounds good. All right, perfect, John. For everybody, just the FSR Global Sarcoidosis Summit this is its third version of the event. This started back 3 years ago. It is our largest event within the organization that we offer to not only sarcoidosis patients, but caregivers, loved ones, supporters, people living with sarcoidosis, also clinicians. We offer this to them as well. It is our largest event. It is, if you've ever been to a conference, I just like to describe it like that. If you've ever been to a conference in person, it's literally a conference, but just through a virtual platform. With that being said, we have some sessions that we offer. I believe this year we're offering 16 different sessions that'll provide you with different topics and discussions within those sessions. We're providing some interactive opportunities throughout the event to just kind of come together and have open discussions via Zoom rooms with some other people who are going through the same journey you are, and or are supporting someone going through the same journey you are. We also have some opportunities for chat boards. We have virtual booths, just like you would at any in-person conference. I want to say right now we're at over 25 of our GSCA members who have said that they will be providing a virtual booth at this event. We also
what would that be? What would be an example of a booth?
Perfect. That's a great question. So booth will have anything from, information about the organization itself that's providing that booth. If they're providing any support groups within their specific clinics, if they have any information, if they're doing any walks coming up, if they're doing fundraising events, if they, some of their providers who are uniquely focused on sarcoidosis, they will be providing that type of information. Also, points of contacts with people who you can contact within that organization if you'd like to start looking at receiving some care there, and or jumping on one of their support groups. Some of our volunteers' information will also be on that information, because through the GSCA, our volunteers are a part of those clinics to an extent. They're not staff members, but they are volunteering specifically for that clinics, and they're the ones who manage and run support groups and some of the outreach events that are happening within that clinic or that area where that clinic lies in. So that's some of the information that's going to be happening with those virtual booths. So it's a lot of extra tools for your tool belt, as I like to say. So bring your tool belt, and by the end of the event, you're going to have a pretty full tool belt of information that you can take forward to, better support your care and your journey.
Yeah. So, and I've looked at this quite extensively, although just not in the past few months. So I'm doing this a little bit from memory, but I've been a part of the last two summits. And so if you go to a conference, you'd be walking down a hallway in a hotel or conference center, and the various groups would have their physical booths set up, and you'd stop by and you'd chat with them, and you'd look at their literature, you'd take a sticker or a pen or, something that they might be handing out, and you'd get to know a little bit more about them. So virtually, when you do that, you look at this a screen full of essentially tiles that you can click on, and when you click on that tile, there's XYZ pharma company, right? And they're telling you about the latest research that they're doing with a specific drug or a clinical trial or that sort of thing. Or if it is a clinic and people are looking for a place for care, and you've got multiple clinics set up, right? And these are all part of the Global Sarcoidosis Network. That's a long term. What is the specific term? I know I didn't get it right.
No, that's fine. It's the Global Sarcoidosis Clinic Alliance.
Clinic Alliance. Yeah. So basically hospitals that specialize in sarcoidosis we've created this alliance. FSR has, and you've got a lot of those already lined up. to answer patients' questions, and so somebody can come by and they can chat and they can see what's going on, right? And choose. Yeah, because so many people come on the podcast and they say, there's no doctor in my area that specializes in sarcoidosis, or that has even heard of sarcoidosis. So I drive personally, 7 hours to go to Cleveland, to the Cleveland Clinic, because that's where I found the specialty care that I felt like I needed and wanted. And there's a lot of people out there looking for that connection with somebody that really knows what's going on with sarcoidosis. So that's one opportunity for patients. And then we've got 3 days of programming that we could talk about. And I know that I'll be hosting a special session on Friday night, and then also hosting the patient panel discussion with 3 other sarcoidosis patients. And that'll be Sunday, November 5th from 11 to 12 Eastern time, and just talking to patients about what their life is like with Sarc. But what else can people expect if they sign up for the conference and they spend the weekend attending virtually?
No, that's perfect. Yeah. So, I mean, aside from those 2 highlight points, that you mentioned, John, this year we wanted, we look at and we change the theme every year. This year's theme is find your community, find your life. And that was not something we just pulled out of the air. A lot of work went into that through the patient advisory committee, right, and some other committees as well as extra conversations within the organization. And that is the theme that we landed on. And because we understand the power of community, right? While community ultimately, right now there is no cure for sarcoidosis, and while community won't give that to you, but what we found through research and through some of the things that have been published out there is that when you have that, when you have a sense of community, a group of people who are by your side or that you can lean on and just chat and talk with, it does provide a better sense of life, and you can find your life, whether it's the one you're living at now. And sometimes we've heard from people that they found their new life, right, by just joining or becoming a part of a community. So with that being said, we focused a lot of our topics that are going to be that we're going to deliver throughout the 2.25-day event. And we focused on that. We really went in, we did a lot of work to really bring some of these topics to light. So some of the topics that, we'll be having this year is, unique ones that we've never had in the past, such as like find your veteran community. Right, that topic itself. Well, it's not find your veteran community. It's find your first responder community. That's going to focus on veterans and first responders, because we do understand that not only veterans but also first responders, some that were involved in the 9/11 event. We're starting to see that there's a higher risk for them developing or being diagnosed with sarcoidosis. So we're focusing on that so that they can have a sense of community as well, and connecting with other people that look and feel and talk like them. The patient panel discussion, that's another one where we're looking to bring people in and get it from get some information from a patient perspective, because sometimes you go to these conferences and it's just directed from a clinician standpoint to to patients. Well, we're looking to just kind of do it a little bit differently. That event itself did happen last year, and it was one of our most popular events. It got nothing but high ratings, and people wanted it to come back, so we made sure that it came back. We also have other events that are going to be focused on community buildings, i.e., such as our plenary speaker. He is Sean Doyle. He has done a lot of literature and has created a guide, kind of like a roadmap, a checklist per se, on how, building community and leading to better health. He is going to be providing us with that sort of perspective and speech and information within his session. It's going to kick things off. It's going to get everybody kind of, jazzed up and full of energy to kind of maneuver and navigate the next 2 days of sessions. And along with that, he's offered to provide his roadmap, his checklist for free to everybody that will attend the summit. So that's another opportunity to come to the summit and get something tangible that you can actually take away with you. He's going to be giving that away for free for every member that attends the summit. More information, we'll post that up on the site once it gets a little closer, but that's another opportunity to just come and listen to somebody different from a keynote perspective. And then as we navigate the journey and we go through the different topics, you know, we bring back some of our Sarcoidosis 101 topics, such as neurosarcoidosis, pulmonary sarcoidosis, and cardiac sarcoidosis throughout this event. For those people who maybe haven't heard, you know, those type of topics, who are not as new to the to sarcoidosis space, but also for some of our new patients who are just beginning their journey and navigating it, we brought those topics back, and we bring those back every year because we feel that those are important to highlight every single year, as some of our people just need to hear it again or need to hear the latest news within those.
That's what gets me. I want to know the latest. You know, I'm a
Latest,
neurosarc
right.
guy. I never thought I'd be saying that, but among your categories there, that's me. And if there's anything new, I certainly want to know about it. Yeah, and
Exactly.
so I would just look at the calendar and attend that session. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you know who's speaking at that particular event yet?
Yeah, I can get that for you really
Okay.
quickly. We do have that pulled up, but aside from that, while I get that pulled up,
Yeah.
you know, ultimately that culminates in along the journey, and as you're getting to network and meet people, that it ends with a session that is very unique to this year, and this is, you know, through a lot of hard work. We're going to bring in a chef, a professional chef, and she's going to provide a overview of an anti-inflammatory diet, and how an anti-inflammatory diet, excuse me, you know, helps promote better wellness and, you know, a better approach to, you know, the whole holistic approach to better outcomes for your the condition of sarcoidosis, and not just sarcoidosis, but rare conditions and chronic illnesses. So she's not only going to give an anti-inflammatory overview, she's actually going to do a live cooking session. And you're able to follow along with that session and see, you know, just create something a little healthier, very tasty, and it's focusing on anti-inflammatory components, so that, you know, you can kind of get a little bit more of a tool in your tool belt with that. So we're very excited about that one. And then at the end of that session, we'll break bread together, because a part of Sean Doyle's, our keynote speaker, message is breaking bread is a big part of it, right? Coming together through a meal, having a sense of community. So as a community, we'll break bread together. We'll get to enjoy each other for a few more minutes as we share a meal, and then, you know, leave the event at that point. But so it's a whole journey. It's packed full of events. We'll be able to share some of that information with you guys. But as you said, just kind of answering your question, it's Dr. Jeff Gelfand. He's a world-renowned neurosarcoidosis expert. So he's going to be delivering the Sarcoidosis 101 neurosarcoidosis session. That happens from 1 to 2 p.m. Central, John, and that's going to be from November 4th, and that's on a Saturday.
Yeah, and just, you know, speaking as a neurosarc person, there's so few people who have sarcoidosis, and then neurosarc is just a very, very small percentage of that. I think like maybe 5% of all sarc patients have neurosarc or something. So, you know, it's hard to find a place where you can go and sit and have somebody talking just about that narrow field of focus. And then pulmonary, of course, that's 90% of all patients, but then you've got cardiac. And I've had a lot of cardiac patients on the show. So all those different topics are out there. And Manny, I will point out that there is a fee. You have to, when you sign up, there is a fee. But you guys, you work all year to put this thing together. You're moving heaven and earth, and you're bringing all the top people in the entire field around the world together for this one weekend. I feel like the fee is justified, right? I mean, you got to do it just to break even, right? It's not like it's a big money maker for you guys, but you got to charge that fee, right?
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, because that is something that we just have to explain, because all of our programming throughout the year is free of cost. We charge nothing to anybody for all of the programming that we do throughout the year. And because this event is so big, and because we do have, we do bring in if we were to do this via Zoom, it just wouldn't work, right? So we do bring a platform which is called Swap Card into this event, and that platform itself will allow us to offer the many things that we offer throughout the event is a little costly and is a little pricey. And like you said, we would love to break even, but we don't even do that, right? But it's understood that the work is necessary for us to do this, so we'll do it. But unfortunately, we do have to charge a price, and prices at this point, the early bird registration has closed. So the price at this point is $75. We do have our offers limited scholarships, and there are still some available. So for people who aren't able to afford that, you can always submit a scholarship. We review those every week, and we try to grant as many scholarships as possible to the event. And we still have quite a few scholarships available. So yeah, we do have to charge for the event, but I agree with you. I think that the fee is justified, in my opinion, as well. We've heard from many other patients that, reoccurring patients, some patients show up every year and feel that the fee is, is marginal compared to what they gather and what they get out of the event. This is also a global event. So I think that, when you come into an event like this, you think that you're just going to maybe meet people from your local area or maybe just within the country, but you're going to actually get to meet people from throughout the world, as we have many of our attendees be international partners and people who come from other organizations, because there are other sarcoidosis organizations throughout the world. So I think it's just the fee may look like a lot up front, but I think when you leave the event, and many quotes that I've heard before, this event changed my life, is the type of theme that people go to. I will attend year after year, and we see those reoccurring members come back. So I think it is definitely something that we try our best to not raise the prices, and we actually kept it the same prices last year for this year. We always look at that as one of those things that if we can mess around with it and maybe keep it where we're at, we will always make that effort to not try to raise that price for people, because we understand it does come at a cost. And like I said, every year we look to go bigger and better. This normally it's about 300 to 350 people joining the event. Everybody out there, if you could help us out, we're looking to set the record this year. We're looking to go bigger, better, faster every single year, because that's what a good organization should be striving for. So we're looking to break 400. So I challenge all of us to come together and try to break the record this year and set a new bar and set a new standard for future events as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And pre-pandemic, there were summits that were live and in person, and then you had to get on an airplane and fly or drive a long distance to go, and you had to pay for a hotel room, and so you're looking at a $1,000 to $2,000 weekend by the time you take care of all those types of things. And now for $60, you can sit at home and you can have access to all those things. And in a post-pandemic way where we're all very comfortable, I have many people through this podcast that I have met online only, but I feel like they're friends, colleagues, people I know, people I now exchange emails with. And I just consider them. I haven't sat down and had a beer with them or something like that, but I feel like I know them, and that's just the way it is right now. And this is an opportunity to network and have that sense of community that way. So, and it's a lot. My point is I started out saying it's a lot cheaper to just sign up, right?
Yes.
Than it is to get on a plane or get in your car and go pay for a hotel room. So
yeah. And I'll be honest, John, and some of this opportunity to keep it, the pricing where it's at, is also because we do have some of our corporate sponsors, right? So we're always grateful for their support. They allow us to keep the pricing a little bit on the lower end. Some of our corporate sponsors such as A-Tire Pharma, Kinevant, Mallinckrodt, or Accentria, like 23andMe, allows us to be able to put on such a robust event, and at the same time, try to keep the pricing at the lowest price point that we can do, and that's truly what it is right now, the lowest price point that we have, and then also to bring them back to the table next year and show them what we're capable of doing so that we can continue to keep these events going, right? We couldn't do it without them. So I'd be remiss if I didn't, mention them, because I got to give them a big shout out as well. As far as that, some of our platinum sponsors that I mentioned earlier, such as A-Tire and Kinevent, will also be having a couple of sessions within the event. They're going to bring some information to some of the latest research and studies that are happening in the field, be able to provide, those sessions will be plenary sessions where there'll be standalone sessions where everybody can go and just listen to the latest. Like you said, you want the latest and greatest. So
Right.
they're going to be there speaking on the latest and greatest, what's coming up for the future and things like that. So, this is a good opportunity for people to not miss out on this event. And if you happen to be out there and you're saying, oh, that weekend's booked up for me, totally understand. Our platform will be open for 60 days post-event. All our sessions will be recorded. And even if you attended the event and maybe you had to attend one session and weren't able to attend another, this opportunity is open to you all as well, because we find it valuable to be able to go back and maybe you missed something on one day or you weren't available. You can go watch any of these sessions live, not live, but recorded, and, be able to, just take it all in within 60 days of the event closing.
Yeah, that's good. So that's because it is one weekend and
Mhm.
people are busy anymore. But that'll still be there. You mentioned 23andMe, and I just want to remind people that we had some folks from 23andMe here on the podcast, and what they're looking at is to see if there are genetic markers that indicate for a predisposition for sarcoidosis. And I think that's something that fascinates people. And so I'm really glad to hear that they're on as a sponsor of this event. And will they have a booth as well?
Yeah. So right now, 23andMe, I'm looking, I believe they're, yep, we're building the booth for 23andMe. So 23andMe will have a booth as well. Angela and Stacy, that are part of our team are, working diligently to build all these booths and create the most informative information. But to answer your question, yes.
Yeah. Well, just, that's the kind of thing
Yes.
that FSR is facilitating. And I just want listeners, maybe they've only listened to this one podcast for all I know. I mean, we tend to have a lot of return listeners, and thank you, listeners, for that. But that's just the type of thing that without FSR, you don't galvanize all these different groups that are coming at this from so many different ways. Yeah, you've got A-Tire and Kinevent, who I'll repeat their names because they sponsor the podcast in return for that's part of their deal with FSR, and I'm happy to help out as a volunteer. But if it wasn't for FSR, all these different groups would not have a place to just sort of gel and come together. And now when we have the summit, then they come together with the patients as well. And it's just something that has to happen, right? I mean, it really makes it all work.
I totally agree. Back to the theme, right? Like I keep saying it. And John, you've heard me say this, at some of our meetings and stuff like that. It may not be find your community, but it takes a village. It genuinely takes a village to get anything done. It was no different in the military, right? It was no different than, when I was in high school, right? Wherever you are at in life, it genuinely takes a village, and it's not always just about, finding, a community or helping through your journey within sarcoidosis, but just anything in life takes a village, right? You just can't do things alone. And when you do, sure, you'll be able to take care of some things alone along the way, but ultimately to be successful at life and get things truly accomplished the way you want to see them, it takes a village. And as always, John, I'm sure people come on your podcast, always think, we thank you, John. Thank you for saying that FSR is doing all of these things to bring people together and create villages and community, but we can't do it without people such as yourself, our volunteers that are out there grinding every single day, and putting out, informative, doing outreach, providing as much information to people. You use your platform to, also raise awareness. You work like you said earlier, till 11 o'clock at night, right? No different than anyone else. You do it to yourself because you have a passion for it. And that's why, we were very grateful. For those of you who don't know out there, we were able to, honor John this past May during our inaugural awards gala for the organization. So it's the first of its kind. It was an amazing event. And we were able to honor John during that event for all of his relentless efforts and work and, his platform and everything that he does for the community. So thank you for saying the words that you said about us, but I can't miss the opportunity to say thank you to you, John. I mean, you are a pioneer. You're leading in ways that you probably don't even think you're leading in, but we would be wrong if we didn't take this opportunity and every opportunity. Also, thank you to you, and also out there to thank you to all the volunteers and the people who are out there doing the real work, right? So Thank you for that.
Right. Well, again, and thank you for saying that, Manny. Again, I'm just a guy sitting in what was my son's bedroom before he went off to college and graduated, raised a family, and and I've got a little bit of a background with broadcasting, and so I set up a microphone, a podcast studio, and started talking to people about sarcoidosis, and that's really all I do. But I'm glad to see that people are interested and that they're listening, and thank you again for the award. So if people want to sign up for the summit, and I know I'll put a link in the show notes, but let's say they're listening right now and they're so excited about our conversation, they want to do it right now before they forget, and I think they should. What do they do?
So you can please just visit stopsarcoidosis.org/summit-2023 / That's again, stopsarcoidosis.org/summit-2023 / and then it'll get you to the link. And like I said, in this link, you will also be able to purchase your ticket. And if you'd like to apply for a scholarship, there's also a register here button that will allow you to do that as well.
So that will give you a break on the cost to get into the summit.
Yeah, so just it'll be no cost to you. If you're granted the scholarship, it'll be zero cost to you.
Well, that's good, because there are a lot of people who, we hear about people who don't have the money for daycare, for childcare, so they can go see their doctor.
That's
right. So they don't go. And money is an issue for people. And so, but we want, those people have sarcoidosis too. And so if you were able to provide those scholarships for those folks, that's really good. Well, Manny, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast today. We've talked about a lot. We're glad to have you on board. I know that you are learning so much about sarcoidosis that you never thought that you would have to know after your time as a hospital corpsman in the Navy. But we appreciate you bringing all that background and expertise to our particular cause.
All right. Well, I appreciate people like you, John, and everybody out there. I always say this, and I genuinely mean it. Nobody works for me, right? You guys don't work for me. I work for you. So if there's anything out there we can do for you from an organization standpoint, please don't hesitate to reach out. Google the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. There's an info app button. We will make sure that your questions get answered. And thank you, John, again, for having me on your podcast, for probably taking time out of your busy day to have me on here. And if there's anything we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be here for you, each and every one of you. Thank you.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
So some great takeaways from Manny's discussion. First of all, Manny, thank you for your service. I always like to say that to our veterans. And I know you've been in it and you've seen it all, and you've been over there protecting our country and all the freedoms that we appreciate here in the United States. And when you look at what's going on in Israel right now, you just really appreciate the lives that we have here in the United States, and that is not free. As they say, freedom isn't free. So thank you for your service. And thanks for helping guide all of us in our journeys and for helping set up a network of places where we can turn to help if we're needed through the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. The official Sarc Fighter song is called Zombie by Mark Steyer and his band, the White Hot Lizards. Mark is a fellow Sarc Fighter. The story behind the lyrics is episode 12. We release the podcast every other Monday. As I'm speaking today, yes, he is there, my trusty dog Dougal. My boxer is curled up on the chair in my office, and Dougal makes my life so much better. The backstory to the founding of the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research is episode 11 with Andrea and Redding Wilson. Don't forget to follow me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, and Peloton as Sarc Fighter. My cycling blog, Carlin the Cyclist, has a section called Cycling with Sarcoidosis. I am way overdue on writing a cycling-specific blog post, and I will get to that as soon as I can. But there's some historic stuff in there, especially when I was going through it. And if you're a fitness buff and sarcoidosis has given you a setback, maybe you'll find some inspiration through my blog. Also, if you're new here and just trying to figure out what Sarc is, try listening to episode 2 with Dr. Simon Hart. My story is episode 1. I always like hearing from you, so please send me an email. It's in the show notes. I always like hearing from my fellow Sarc Fighters, and maybe I'll read some of your story on the air. So please do send an email, carlinagency@gmail.com. And until next time, keep fighting.
Learn to suffer, you feel pain someday. Learn endurance, your strength